All right, let's get started. Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us today for another important meeting to discuss three potential concepts for the renovation of our clubhouse. I'm Alan Weaver, president of the club. Pleased to be joined by Brian Idle, CEO of Peacock and Lewis, and Larry Ritter, our treasurer and chairman of finance. We also have Isaac Campos from Peacock and Lewis, and Craig Whiting, the chairman of our long-range planning committee, are with us today. Here is the agenda for our meeting. I'll handle the first two topics. Brian will take the next two, and then Larry will come up and talk about financial considerations, and we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. So the planning process. We started this effort about a year ago, and we're still relatively early in the process, believe it or not. We've been very, and will continue to be very methodical about how we pursue this. So what I'd like you to do, and the purpose of these sessions today, is to focus on the three concepts that Brian's going to present. What you like about them, what you don't like about them, how you think they fit the future of the Ocean Club or don't. Also feedback on the concepts themselves in terms of different ideas. They're evolving. They've changed over the last several months, and they will continue to change. So we want your feedback on the concepts and also any detailed comments about some of the aspects of those. We still have a lot more work to do, including costing out what these concepts will cost and how we would finance them. Larry will talk a little about that, and then I'll talk about timing for the whole process right at the end before we go to questions. Also today, when this session is finished, you'll get an email almost immediately. That'll have a link to a survey and get your feedback on the session, on the concepts, and any comments you want to make. It'll also have a link to the presentation, so you'll have the presentation and all the slides you see today to reference. So you'll get that as soon as you leave today. About a year ago, when we started this process, Craig put together a long-range planning subcommittee that has been shepherding the process. These are the members of the committee. Very good variety of backgrounds, length of the club, ages, abilities, and perspectives. It's been a great group. A lot of value has come out of this committee. We also made visits to several other clubs that have gone through major renovations and learned what they thought went really well, what they would do differently if they had to do it again. The number one piece of feedback on what they would do differently is they would have built a bigger bar with more seats and more capacity because their bars are full. And Brian will talk about kind of the trend in clubs and bars these days. We also retained several firms. In addition to Peacock and Lewis, several engineering firms. We've also received input from Mount Associates. We have not retained Mount, but on a pro bono basis, they've been very good input from them and feedback. So here's the process we went through. We did a clubhouse assessment, so we try to assess what we're working with today with the clubhouse. The long-range planning committee came up with goals and objectives for the process. What do we want to achieve? Gave those to Peacock and Lewis. They helped refine those a little bit, and then they developed good, better, and best concepts, which Brian will cover. We've been doing clubhouse tours for about the last 2 months. How many of you have been on a clubhouse tour or watched the video? Great. If you haven't, I encourage you to watch the video. I think it's really illuminating to see kind of what we're working with infrastructure-wise, kitchen-wise, when you look at that video where you take a tour of the clubhouse. So we've done those for a couple of months. This is our 10th presentation. We're doing 13. We've got 3 more tomorrow. We did 7 last week. We have 6 this week. So we're well through the April member presentations. We are also taping a presentation that will be on the website so that members can watch that if they can't be here in person. So what did we learn when we did the clubhouse assessment? We have a 60-year-old clubhouse. It's on the ocean with the harsh weather that goes with that. And it's solid, but there's some issues with the clubhouse. When we did a survey of the members 2 summers ago, one of the things that was clear is that members felt like the clubhouse was in need of an upgrade. Everything from a redecoration of the clubhouse to a more radical redo of the clubhouse, but clearly they felt like the clubhouse could be better. We have failing infrastructure, so our roof will last about another 3 years, potentially, but then we need a new roof. Our HVAC systems are on the roof, as you can see them from the pool, and they're exposed to the elements. We replace those about every 3 years. We replaced them last summer. Electrical's not really up to standard. We've got other issues with the infrastructure of the building. If you've taken the tours, I think you'd agree that kitchens are inadequate. Low ceiling height in the lower kitchen, low capacity in that kitchen, low capacity or size in the upstairs kitchen. Trying to deliver food in a consistent way to members is very challenging. So if you think about Friday night where we have our largest night and you're out having an a la carte dinner and they're trying to stage, service for 8 people at your table, we don't have an area in the kitchen where they have warming lights and you can keep 8 dishes warm. They sit over on the side on top of the chest freezer. And then by the time you get the 8 together, they get on a tray, they go down the stairs, which if you saw that, I'll show you a picture of that later, and then they have to go all the way out to a table out by the pool. The chances of that getting there piping hot are pretty low. And so we're asking a lot of our chef and of our staff in terms of the kitchens. We're missing a gathering bar. I talk about bars. Most clubs have some kind of a gathering bar. I like our bar, but I wouldn't call it necessarily a gathering bar. It's also away from the view of the ocean. Most clubs have bigger bars where you can sit at the bar, have dinner at the bar, eat around the bar. That's typically the most popular place to eat in clubs these days. We don't have any kind of a covered terrace dining option at this level that has views of the ocean and is outside. Low ceilings, as you can see from this room, and this room is not that flexible. You've got the big pillars, you've got support walls around. If you have a big event like New Year's Eve, I was here for New Year's Eve, you put a band over here, you have a dance floor, you've got some people around here, but a lot of the attendees are down the hallway away from the main action. So if you've got a big event like New Year's Eve, a wedding or another big event, this is not the most flexible space to have one of those events. And this has an impact on food quality and service, as I said. Member usage in the clubhouse. So I mentioned the feedback we got. A great example is in the month of March on Fridays, which is typically our biggest night, wind down Fridays. We had spectacular weather for the first 4 Fridays of March. And we had up to 140 people outside that would book. And we went to food stations so we could accommodate everybody. The last Friday before Easter, it rained. And so with about 24 hours notice, we said we're going to move dinner inside. We had 140 people booked for dinner that night. When we said we're coming inside, it went to 80. So 60 people said, if I had the choice, I'm not going inside. With 24-hour notice, you got to go, restaurants are booked. So you got to go find someplace else to eat. But we would like people to be enthusiastic about eating inside the clubhouse and not have that kind of attrition because the weather is variable. It's also about the competitiveness of the Ocean Club. I put the list of clubs up. Many of them have redone their clubhouses, redone their kitchens. We need to stay competitive. We've had a great flow of members. If you came to the meeting on Monday, Susie talked about 38 new members last year. It's terrific. That's a great flow. We need to continue with that flow. But we are in competition for new members with other clubs. And then larger events. We really are kind of hamstrung with larger events. We can put them on to a degree, but they're not as good as they could be. So if you took the tour, you'll recognize these pictures. The ones on the top left, this is the delivery area. So this is the path. The truck is out on the parking lot, tilting on the parking lot. The food comes down that path. It goes by the garbage cans, down around the corner. A lot of it has to come to the second floor where the main kitchen is. That's the lift that goes up. It's usually broken, so and it's old and it's hard to get parts and service. So then they use the stairs and they go up, and then this is the stairs going down when they have to serve food outside. So those stairs get used a lot. They're not the greatest. And then this is the lower kitchen, under 7 feet tall. A lot of exhaust ducts and other piping down there that goes over the food preparation area. It's a tough place. You can only make lunch here. You can't do dinner out of that level, and it's not a terrific environment. So what did I said goals and objectives. What did we come up with? First, on the main level, so at this level, expand, reconfigure the kitchen for the needs of the club. Gathering bar, in-bar dining, ocean views, so much better gathering bar. Covered outdoor terrace dining, as I mentioned. A better private dining room. We use the Pineapple Room sometimes, but that's often, the employees also kind of eat there sometimes, but we use that as a private dining room. We also use the board room, which is not really that elegant a room, and it's right next to the bar. So a better situation for a private dining room. Flexibility to have larger events, as I mentioned, higher ceilings, and a proper elevator. So we have a lift over here like we do in the kitchen. We can't put an elevator in given the construction of the building, the way it's anchored. That lift is often broken, which is terrible if you need a lift to get upstairs or downstairs. We did order a new lift, so we have a new lift coming in September, but it's really kind of inadequate for the needs of a modern club. This is a schematic of this floor, and these dark lines across here are bearing walls, load-bearing walls, and then across here, this is the coral room and the bar. It really, this is the part of the flexibility, limits the flexibility. Last summer, we were trying to figure out a way to spruce up the bar, and we were going to take out this wall and open up the bar to the coral room. And we looked at it, we talked to some construction engineering firms. One, is going to be expensive, two, it's risky. And so we basically said, at this point, we're not going to do it, because you have to go down and support a beam that would go across there down below. Brian will talk about that in one of the concepts. But that really hurts the flexibility. You see, there's also a lot of, through the kitchen over here, and this is the Pineapple Room, but there's also bearing walls down there as well. So, pretty inflexible building. At the pool level, again, kitchens, expand, reconfigure the kitchen. So employee dining and break room, we really don't have an employee dining room. I said sometimes they eat in the Pineapple Room, sometimes that's booked. Otherwise, then they've got to eat down in the kitchen someplace down below. We don't have a break room. We don't have a place where employees can come in, have a locker, put their backpacks, put their tablets, come in between shifts, and maybe sit down and take a rest. Really substandard employee conditions, not really acceptable in today's market for high-quality staff, and not what other clubs are doing for their employees. So most clubs are upgrading their employee facilities. We also have what we call inadequate office space for the staff, the administrative, for Joe and his team down below. We'd like to have a little bit better situation there. Other things that came up from the group and from feedback was parking and the entryway. The sloped upward parking, the parking lot, the climb to get up, and then you get up and you have to go up or down. The car's kind of tilted when you pull in and the valets open your doors. Trying to figure out how to make that a better entrance and an easier entrance for the members. Again, proper elevator. We'd love to have a proper elevator to get people up and down. Storage space. We don't have storage space, so we use a couple of cabanas on the top, the west end of the top part of the North Cabana building. To have flexibility for different environments and different events, you need storage so you can put some tables away, bring other ones out, remove them because you have a dance floor or whatever. We really are underserved by storage space. And then I mentioned failing infrastructure. Like to do more there. So the big picture, before I turn over to Brian, is we want to renovate the kitchens so we can really give the chef the best environment to produce quality food and for our wait staff to serve that food. Renovate the clubhouse so members want to come inside the clubhouse. So we want them to want to be here inside, not just outside by the pool. Be competitive with peer clubs. Make sure that we can continue that flow of membership. Today, the membership dynamics in this area are terrific. More people are moving down. They're not creating more beach clubs, but the environment may not always stay the same. We want to be the first choice for people in this area when they want to join a beach club. Workplace conditions, have competitive workplace conditions so we can attract and then retain the best staff. That's a key part of what the kind of outcome we want. And then within all this, maintain an old Florida feel. So we don't want a Hyatt Regency that's, you know, marble and glass everywhere. We want to retain a beach club, old Florida feel, whatever we do, whether we renovate or do any of the other concepts. So with that, I'll turn over to Brian Idle to go through the concept.
Thank you, Al. Well, thank all of you for spending some time in this long education process that we've been going through. We've been at it about a year, understanding you, how you use the club, the building itself, what the restrictions are, what the capabilities are, and meeting all of the objectives that were outlined. I've been with Peacock and Lewis going on 40 years, and the firm founded in 1961. They were one of the firms that helped develop the skyline of Palm Beach County in the early days. It was condominiums on the beach, it was fire stations, universities, hospitals, you name it. But they did their first club in 1961. And I often joked with Mr. Peacock and Mr. Lewis, I said, you know, you guys had it easy, because in the 60s, South Florida, doing clubs, all the members were the same age, they danced to the same music, ate the same food, and went to bed at the same time. Look around the room today, you know, it's multi-generational. People use their clubs differently. The demands on the club are like the culinary requirements at the club are quite different than in the early days. And so it puts demands on the kitchen, the diversity in the menu, the equipment to create that menu. And so today's club is a lot different than when this club was created in the 60s. And so, you know, what is different about today's club? Well, and particularly beach clubs. As Alan pointed out multiple times, you don't mind gathering for a drink. And we've always had bars in clubs, but they take on a whole different look now, because it kind of goes back to our days in college where we would gather around the bar, look at the people across from each other, wave, say hi, start a conversation. And so we've kind of gone back to those days. So the gathering bars at the club are a lot different. You can sit and eat at a bar if your spouse is traveling, or you're coming to the club to meet another member. You can sit at the bar, have conversation, have lunch, dinner. The ceiling heights are a little different, because the walls that open to the outdoor environment are different. So you go to your favorite restaurant today, there's a restaurant that the wall completely collapses and you integrate the outdoor seats to the indoor seats, and you know, the flow from indoor to outdoor is kind of very transparent. You see transoms over glass, so that if the door is open, you still have, or closed, you still have the ability to connect to the outside environment. You have ceiling fans, radiant heaters, a lot of air drops in the outdoor spaces. You have chairs that don't squeak when you sit on them. But you will see a bar. You'll always see a bar that probably communicates indoor to outdoor to get full use out of the club. Acoustical treatments are a little different. You can create acoustical treatments that look like tongue and groove. You can, the air conditioning systems are different. You see the transoms over the glass. You can create very uplifting environments, and probably the two technologies that have revolutionized architecture in the past 20 years is glass technology and lighting technology. And you'll see buildings with a lot more glass on them than there used to be, and allowing daylight to illuminate spaces is very much in vogue. Flexibility, the ability to separate spaces so you can right-size the room based on the number of reservations, have simultaneous events, have a kitchen to be able to serve different groups that are occupying the building at different times. So all of these things are incorporated into our designs. So off we went, and we said we've got a long list of criteria, objectives that we want to achieve. Let's start with the current footprint. What can we do in the current footprint? And that is our good option. That'll be option number one that I show you. If we didn't do anything to expand the building, what would we do inside the walls? And stay under the current code requirements. Now, if you're in the design or construction industry, you know that in the state of Florida, every 3 years, we get a new building code to design to. And in that new building code, the wind load resistance goes up, the amount of energy you can use goes down, and so we have to be a lot more energy efficient and withstand higher wind loads. FEMA maps change, right? So the rising sea levels, we've got to respect that. And when I first moved to Florida in 1981, I was designing buildings to withstand 90-mile-an-hour wind loads. And a kid coming from the Midwest, I said, that's pretty daunting. How would you design a building to withstand 90-mile-an-hour wind loads? Today, we design to withstand 170-mile-an-hour wind loads. And the buildings we design have to be 35% more energy efficient than the building we're in today, and that will go up 5% every code upgrade. Well, the shading coefficients on glass, LED lights, more energy efficient air conditioning systems, and kitchen equipment. And so the list goes on and on. We are going to stay under the requirement to meet those codes in our first option. The second option, we are going to meet all the current codes, be better insurable, because we're going to have to strengthen our building a little bit, and we're going to re-establish what the original architect and developer created for the members back in the 60s, and that's the opportunity to enjoy a terrace the entire length of this clubhouse overlooking the ocean. You can see pictures of it out in the lobby. There used to be an awning-covered terrace outside. Members just float and spend a lot of time outside getting fresh air and daylight. And that's what the pandemic taught us. We want to be outside, not inside. So today you're going to see most of our buildings, we're designing brand new facilities that have as much outdoor covered space as indoor air conditioned space. And so that's kind of the state of the art. We're going to re-establish that in the better option. And then option number 3 takes in the entire site. And it says, because they don't make property like this anymore, would you do anything different with the location of the building, the height of the building, and the layout of the building to better serve the current needs of the membership? So those are the 3 options that we're going to look at. Starting with the good option, as Alan pointed out, this is the schematic of your building, and we splashed a little color on it so you can see the different spaces that occupy the main level of the clubhouse. The green area is the kitchen area. We would create a kitchen that is more acoustically isolated from the dining floor. If you've heard kind of the banter behind the walls as we've been presenting today, we would have kind of an air lock, light lock, and sound lock coming into the kitchen. We would expand it about 1,000 square feet. That's the red line that you see on the diagram there. We would go into the pineapple room. We would expand the area to relocate kitchen equipment in a way that we could have an expanded menu and get the cuisine out to the patron much quicker. We cannot in this design move the lift or the stair that Alan showed you. That would stay in the plan, but we're going to bring the refrigeration and the ice machine inside the building. Okay, no longer will that be in the loading dock. We would expand the lobby so the arrival into the space would be a little more gracious with some soft seating and a maitre d'. Move the concierge to the left side instead of the right side, and open up the view looking out and across the pool and to the ocean beyond. The area to the far north end would be our gathering bar and lounge, and how we would achieve that in this current footprint is we would take the coral room here and the boardroom here, and we would combine them into one space. And then put a gathering bar in that had a view out to the ocean. So this will be one of the most popular rooms in the club moving forward. Now, because you've been in the coral room and the boardroom, and you've noticed that the coral room has a pitched ceiling to it, and the boardroom has a flat ceiling because of the slab above, we can't go into the, to create a pitched roof in this area, so we would design a ceiling like you have with nice millwork and acoustical treatments in it, but we want to give the illusion of more height, and we're not changing the height of the ceiling here, but we want to give that illusion. We would still have our soft-seated groupings here looking west. We would take the washrooms, the men's room and the family washroom here, and we'd consolidate it to the west side of the building, kind of the non-view side of the building, push the gallery back a bit, come down and terminate into the lounge and bar area. The area inside the retaining or bearing wall area, we would take that space that is vacated by the men's room and family washroom and create our boardroom from this location to this location. Here we can have new electronic systems, AV systems, presentation systems, and have better access from the kitchen to serve a private event. We'd have a storage room, and we would have our housekeeping area to better serve the washrooms in that location. Downstairs, you really won't see much change at all. If I take out a bearing wall here that was upstairs, that what Alan pointed out that you wanted to do the past summer, we're going to incorporate into this plan, remove the bearing wall, and that translates downstairs to new columns and footings under the point loads that would be created. The lower level kitchen would expand by pushing into the buffet area, changing the equipment to provide a broader menu. But we cannot change the ceiling heights. We're not doing anything different floor to floor. So there is an improvement there. Once we created this option, the committee said, is there anything you can do that would show the folks visually how things might look? So we chose, as you can imagine, the bar. We said, why don't we show them what the gathering bar could look like? Now I said the danger in doing that is that I do have to show furniture. We do have to show some light fixtures. We have to show some fabrics on the chairs and some carpets and wall coverings, and they may not be to everyone's liking. So don't focus on the finishes. Just focus on how the space could live. If we remove this bearing wall here, we're going to show you a picture of what the bar could look like and the view that it could have. So in that space, we would still maintain what we call a portal because we have to structure the roof above. So there would be columns and a beam in that area. But it would be more of a transparent view from the lounge, looking through the coral room and the boardroom. These exist. These are the nano wall that exist and the doors in the boardroom that exist. And so we would have a good transparent view from the gathering bar out to the water, out to the ocean. Architecturally, on the outside of the building, nothing will change. The rooftop equipment will still be exposed. If you remember when the pool project was done, there was a restructuring of the east facade because some of the steel had rusted away. So there was the restoration of that facade, and it cannot take any more load than it had before, so we cannot put a new roof over this area. So other than color, maybe some landscaping, not much would change in the good plan. How did we do against our list of objectives? Well, the lower level kitchen, we did expand the size, and with the layout is much better. We added some storage. The main level kitchen, we expanded the size, added some storage. And we partially took care of the employee dining room by giving them a portion of the Pineapple Room to have lunch in, okay? For you, we achieved a gathering bar and a private dining boardroom/card room, albeit it's not the best location because it's kind of internal and not on the view. We did upgrade some of the failing infrastructure with new electrical. We need about 400 more amps in the building, so there would be a new electric service that would be pulled in. And the 3-year-old roof, or the remaining life on the roof, we would upgrade the roofing to a new 20-year roof. Now the better plan. Now what we do is take all of the good things that we got out of the good plan. We're going to fold in a new outdoor terrace running the entire length of the club and give you the opportunity to all gather in the same dining room. So now on New Year's Eve, the party will be all in the same room. We still have the more gracious arrival into the lobby space with some soft seating, interior landscaping, concierge to the left, washrooms that are consolidated to the west side of the building. Still have a central gallery that terminates down into a lounge and gathering bar space, but you'll notice that the lounge and the gathering bar gets a little bigger. It also gets a little more volumetric because we would remove that end of the building inside that red box, and we would expand it to higher ceiling heights down at the bar area. We would then also remove the bearing walls that are indicated by these red lines. So these big, heavy, 6-foot wide piers that separate what used to be the inside from the outside of the club will get removed, and we'll replace them with smaller columns that run through the center of the room. Okay? We will take the boardroom, private dining room that used to be in the good plan here, rotate it down to the end of the building, closer to the kitchen, better service, and now back on the view. And the reason we can do that is because we have a complete terrace that runs the entire length of the building that we can now open doors out to that terrace. Down at the bar, we can now institute that new folding wall system so we can be indoor-outdoor, have a much better experience. Add a new stair tower down at this end. Code will tell you if you gather that many people outside, you need 2 ways out of the building. So we have an emergency stair there and a new emergency stair down there. Kitchen, basically the same as we had in the good plan. The terrace is one of those good news, bad news situations. Yes, we love the concept of a covered outdoor opportunity, but I have to support it. I have to, because I can't put any more load on this existing wall, I'll have to create a new line of bearing downstairs with these columns. Now that doesn't affect you at the upper level, but downstairs, next to our new pool, I'll have a row of columns that are about 5 feet off of the water's edge. Not horrible, because most of you will walk under the new 14 foot of depth that we'll have as a shaded patio down at the pool deck level. We would locate the Pelican shop a little closer to the action, and by restructuring this entire north end of the building, now I can expand the west wall and give the administrative staff the proper working conditions to expand the administrative suite. Kitchen would remain the same. And then what would the bar look like with a slightly bigger volumetric area? Well, what we could do is replicate in many regards what the Coral Room provides you now with more volume, or we could put in a skylight like the Restoration Hardware restaurant downtown. Be very nice. We can certainly open up and make it a lot more transparent to the view, and then open up the connection to the end of the dining room to get a better flow from cocktail hour into the seated area. So again, this is not your furniture, this is not the tone of the millwork, it just shows you some of the differences that we could make at the gathering bar. In the dining room, without these big piers blocking the view, we could give the illusion of more height, put some lighted coffers in, some acoustical treatment, some French doors with side lights or banana doors that fold open. A variety of things that we can do to enhance the dining experience both inside and outside. Architecturally, on the exterior of the building, now we get into some changes because we've restructured the entire north end of the building. You'll see more articulation on the architecture, possibly a cupola with clear story light or a skylight. Down here, facing the ocean, you can see more volume down here. And now, because I restructured the entire east facade of the building with the new column line, we can add the mansard roof, which changes the look of the building dramatically and protects the rooftop equipment from the onshore sea breezes. So we can now get longer life out of our rooftop equipment. How do we do on our objectives achieved? Same at the lower level, really no change in the kitchen area. That's exactly like the good plan. The main level kitchen is exactly like the good plan. We didn't move the core. We didn't move the lift and the stairs. For you, the members, we've got a better dining experience because now we're indoor-outdoor. We've got a better gathering bar. We have a much better private dining room, boardroom scenario. We have more flexibility to provide bigger events at the club because now we're all in the same room and not scattered down the hall. And we have much higher ceilings in the gathering bar area. We did expand our administrative suite downstairs, and we did upgrade some of the infrastructure in the process. So that's our better plan. Now, the best plan. Drum roll, please. Here we go. The best plan now takes in the entire site. They don't make these kind of sites anymore. You're very fortunate to have this land. So what the committee said is, we know that our neighbors to the north are doing exactly this same thing. They've raised the old condominium building. They're providing what code will allow them in a new condominium building. In the process, you are going to get a fitness center associated with the club now. You're going to have a fitness center available to you, which is a big, big pickup. We have the ability to look at the site and pull the building back away from the pool so we don't have the encroachment on the pool. We would come up with 90-degree parking rather than angled parking, all at this level, the pool deck level. And the pool deck level, by the way, is a couple of feet, maybe 3 feet above the street level. So we still have separation of coming into a site. The difference being when you come into the site, you'll see a 2-story building in front of you rather than a 1-story building, because we are going to lower all of this parking down to a consistent level that is going to flow with the adjacent development. We're also, when we would tear this building down and replace it, we would have to meet the setbacks to the south. And if you'll notice, when the gazebo bar was built, it was set back off of that retaining wall 25 feet. We would do the same thing on the new building, setting it back 25 feet, giving us the opportunity to have a brand new loading dock or service yard that is concealed away from the view of the member, okay? So the trucks would come in, go behind the gate, garbage pickup, storage of recycle bins, things like that would be all out of view, and you won't have a truck that greets you as you come into the site, so you'll flow much nicer. The committee also said, if you would have designed this building and pool at the same time, wouldn't you have given a relationship of the arrival sequence into the building that kind of followed the axis of the pool and the diving well? We said, certainly. Why wouldn't we do that in a brand new building? So we have you coming into the building down a central gallery that is a little wider and taller, because in this new building, we will be 4 feet higher than where I'm standing and you're sitting. So we're actually going to have a little opportunity to look over the umbrellas and maybe down into the beach, as opposed to the view that you have today. A grand stair would take you up to the upper level. A 6-passenger elevator would take you up to the upper level. But those that are coming to the club casually just walk right into the building at the lower level of the parking lot. If you came into the building and you want to come up to the more formal level of the building, the elevator and the grand stair bringing you up to a concierge to greet you, and then a view right down the main axis of the pool. The dining room now accommodates more people without any columns. No obstructions whatsoever. We still have our private dining room and boardroom down at the south end with a folding wall system that provides additional seating capacity if the number of reservations have exceeded what is capable in the main space. We have a nano wall and French doors, or we could design it with a complete nano wall system that would incorporate the terrace and then have a terrace design that would have roll downs and temperature control that you could expand the dining room even bigger. We would have folding wall system that separates the bar. And now you can see that the bar has been tilted 30 degrees to capture the best views to the southwest and turn the building slightly away from the northeast breezes, the cooler breezes in the wintertime. So this view that you see across the pool is now greatly enhanced from the view that is kind of restricted down the face of the cabanas and at the north end of the pool. We would still have soft seating groupings, more activity around the bar, the same size bar that we have in the better scheme, accommodating more folks gathering, a bigger balcony space outside of the bigger room for that added capacity. Washrooms are now, again, on the west side of the building. A stair will come out of the kitchen. The stair will go up to a 3rd level. You have now the capability of doing a 3rd level. That 3rd level would be kind of the storage of all of the things, a footprint of about that size. An elevator and a stair will take you up to that level. We've decided in this option to make that all of the banquet chairs, all of the banquet tables, the banquet props for Schaefer's and action stations, seasonal decorations, everything you need to do to change the scene from a dining room setup to a banquet setup. So now you can have more events at the club if you want. The kitchen has been expanded from north to south. No longer would we have a stair and an elevator in the center of the space. That would be to the end of the building. And we get a bigger footprint now to provide kitchen equipment in the right orientation to increase the service. Still have our light lock and acoustic lock moving out to the main space, and all of the refrigeration and ice machines inside the building. Downstairs, it's a brand new look. Again, you're arriving, we're showing an emergency vehicle because in the new design, emergency vehicles will now be able to come into the under the main porte cochere. The main gallery that is unair conditioned, that's that breezeway that runs right out to the pool area, a little wider, 4 feet taller, come into the 2-story atrium, up a grand stair up to the formal level. The Pelican shop now has a dressing room and some stock storage in it off of that main breezeway. The locker rooms a little bigger. Each of them has a massage room associated with it. We have the administrative suite rotate back over to the service end of the building, so our administrative suite, slightly larger, an employee lounge and cafeteria right next to the lower level kitchen. In this design, the lower level kitchen now provides enough firepower to provide a la carte dinners down at the pool deck level that the current kitchen can. With the added height in that lower level, Joe no longer has to recruit the culinary team from the U.S. Navy that cooked on submarines. So we got a broader field of potential employees. We have a multi-purpose room, so if all of your fitness needs are not taken care of in the new fitness center in the new building, in the condominium building, we have a little overflow space for a private yoga room or Pilates room or maybe a children's activity room. So there's a variety of things that we can do. Now, believe it or not, this footprint is only 4,000 square feet bigger than the current footprint. It's just organized totally different to be a lot more efficient, and it has a lot more outdoor space. With the added ceiling heights upstairs, now we can create transoms over the folding walls, over the doors. They would have a design to them. There'd be a custom design for the Ocean Club. We would incorporate the volume, whether it's a skylight or a volumetric ceiling. It would have a beautiful flow to an outdoor covered space. The view is now to the southeast, and after the presentation, go look at the view, but this is it. It's quite amazing. You get the activity at the gazebo bar, the umbrella tables, the lawn area, and a beautiful infinity edge created by the ocean. The dining room wouldn't have any columns, no obstructions. It could have the additional height in it. It would have transoms, folding doors, a lot of millwork treatment, acoustic treatments, a lot of layers of lighting with illuminated coffers to even give it more feeling of more height, soft finishes, indoor landscaping, just a beautiful feel. Now, the look of the building can be anything you want. It could be an island classical, an island colonial. It could be a variety of things with more balcony. We could add some little Romeo and Juliet balconies to the front. There could be more awning treatment. But over the main body of the building, you'll notice a higher roof pitch. And now all mechanical equipment will be inside the building. No longer do you have to replace mechanical equipment every 3 years. It'll all be inside the building. And the outdoor balcony space, you can see some are deeper set than the others. The column line is set back another 10 feet from the pool deck, so we don't have the encroachment on the pool deck. How did we do on our scorecard? Well, we achieved every objective you gave us. We have expanded lower level kitchen that now provides dinner service, an improved layout, got rid of all the bearing walls. We have a proper freight elevator, a loading dock that is visible from the chef's office right there on the corner. We don't have to worry about ceiling heights. It's not lunch only, and a great employee space that Joe can now recruit and be very proud of showing. The main level kitchen, again, lots of improvements and access to the upper third level, and the elevator bringing goods in are going to be greatly improved. The gathering bar, the covered terrace, the flexibility of space, the private dining, the higher ceiling, and the proper arrival into this upper level. The other objectives achieved is took care of all failing infrastructure. We expanded the administrative space. The porte cochere is going to be level now with a proper elevator, and the additional storage space in the attic no longer taking space away from cabanas. So I've always told my clients that if you can create a brand new building, and we do a lot of replacement clubhouses that we originally created in the 60s, code compliant to today's codes, energy efficient to today's energy requirements, with today's technology on the outside of the building with glazing, lighting, and everything in the building, it's pretty much maintenance-free for about the first 5 years. You can pretty much take the money that you were reserving to fund depreciation and put that in the bank. So always a good choice if you're looking long-term for the next 60 years. So in the presentation that you're going to get, there will be a scorecard that aligns the good, the better, and the best with the different criteria that we were given to design to. So you'll see it for the main level kitchen, the lower level kitchen, the main level clubhouse, and all the other objectives. Now, very quick, I'll wrap up in a quick second here. We're going to talk about timing for a second, because each one of these options has a little bit different in the construction, the disruption, and so during a construction project, you have to design a building, get it permitted for the first year of the club, how much time it would be closed and out of service, what temporary facilities you would bring in for members to enjoy during a construction period, how long would it take to train the staff in a new building and get ready for a grand opening. So, on the good plan, it would take about 12 months to design and get permitted. And people say, 12 months? Really? Yeah, well, because permitting in today's world is about 3 to 4 months of that 12 months. And have any of you designed or undertaken a kitchen renovation or a bathroom or something at the house, and it took a little longer, and it cost a little more, and you were making decisions all the way up to the end? So in a club project, all decisions have to be made in that first 12 months and put on the plans. You do not start a construction project until all decisions have been made. That allows you to do a 7.5-month construction project. And that typically starts around Mother's Day, when the majority of the members may be moving to a different club for the summer. And so that 7.5 months would end before the heavy full season starts. So sometime around the holidays. It takes still about a month to train and burn off and get everything stocked, get all the freezers and refrigerators stocked. So this time frame typically kicks off around Mother's Day and finishes at the end of that year. The better plan, because we'll be removing a part of the building and because we're going to be gutting this right back to the studs and to the block in all dimensions, ceilings, walls, floors, it's about an additional year to 13 months in the construction, okay? In the demolition and construction. And so because you would be out of the building for a season, we would have to set up temporary facilities. So the temporary services typically start around November, and so the temporary clubhouse would open in about 7 months after the summer is over and run for a full year. So and we would hope to be open by around New Year's Eve. The best option is about the same time frame, except that it takes a little less time to build. You say, that sounds like a mistake. Because how would it take less time to build a brand new building than it would to renovate an existing building? I go back to my analogy, because you don't know what you're going to find in a total renovation of a building. There's going to be something to solve, and in today's world, you have to submit revised drawings to the code authorities before they'll inspect what you found. And so there is an additional time frame. So our contractors always tell us you can budget less in the calendar and less contingency in a brand new building than a major gut and remodel. What does a temporary facility look like? Well, that's up to you. We do them in all shapes and sizes. Everyone has been to the magnificent wedding in a tent where it just looked amazing. We can do that, provide chandeliers, air conditioning. There would be a bar. We would have a bar for you. There would be some outdoor dining. They can take on just a whole variety of, and we were thinking that the outdoor lawn that you just expanded would be the great spot so that you could use the pool and the gazebo bar. So there would be a period that this would be being set up in a demolition period. But generally, we can provide you a full years of service during that time frame. Okay, nobody really cares what any of this costs or how you would pay for it. But in case you did, Larry Ritter is going to come and talk about this whole philosophy of how clubs pay for programs like this. So it's all yours, Larry.
Thank you, Brian. Well, thank you all for coming today, and I'll try to make this brief, but hopefully a bit enlightening. When Craig Whiting asked me to join the Long Range Planning Committee, I was honored to be asked and also excited because I knew the challenge would be to come up with the kind of alternatives you've seen today. At the same time, talk about how can we afford it, what's the real cost in it. But I knew that when we did this, that we would be at a pivotal point in the future history of the club. I believe that the decisions that all of you make, all of us make as members in the next year will dramatically affect the enjoyment that people that we don't even know yet, or our children and our grandchildren can expect in the future. So, as I got involved and realized how complicated the whole project was and how complicated financing could be, it was easier for me to understand if I drew an analogy, and I think easier to explain to other people. And so, the analogy that I would draw between a 60-year-old club would be to compare it to a 20-year-old car with 200,000 miles on it. And if you owned that car and you were trying to make a decision to buy a new car or to keep the car you have, and you were frugal, and you wanted to take your time, and you wanted to truly understand the financial implications of doing that, what you might do is begin by taking the car back to the dealership where you bought it, and the dealership that had serviced that car for the last 20 years, and you meet with the service manager. And you say to the service manager that you'd like to get a better understanding of what you might expect over the next period of time, let's say the next 10 years of ownership of that car. And he would probably say to you, we don't get many cars in at that age. We don't have a lot of experience in dealing with cars 20 years of age or older. But I can give you an idea if I spend a little time on it, and I can get back to you. But I can tell you what you might expect, for certainly expect, that there'll be the normal kinds of maintenance charges that you have every year with the car, tires, battery, the minor things. But over time, every element of the car is deteriorating and deteriorating every day, just like everything in this building is. And so what you have to look at is what might you expect on a year-by-year basis and how you evaluate that versus investing in a new car today. And he would probably tell you that over the next 10 years, you're going to experience things like suspension problems, where you may have to rebuild the tie rods underneath the car, replace shock absorbers. You have to replace the water pump and the oil pump. He might say to you, I've noticed in the reports of the car when you brought it in, it's starting to burn oil. And that gets worse, not better. And to correct that, you have to take the engine out, rebuild part of it, put it back in, and that's very expensive. And so he would say to me, I think, What you're really concerned about is what is your out-of-pocket cost on a yearly basis of keeping what you have and spending the money to keep it in the condition to get you from point A to point B and to keep it looking good enough that you feel good driving it, versus what does it cost in buying a new car? Now, most people, when they think of buying a new car, think that's a gigantic out-of-pocket expense when I buy it. I think he would say to me, if you finance that car over a period of time, your out-of-pocket cost goes down year by year. And when you compare that to what you're spending to maintain your old car, you might be surprised at how close those numbers are. So, how does that relate to what we're talking about today? Let's look at two items. The club, about 4 or 5 years ago, hired an outside consulting firm to come in and look at all major components of the club. The FF&E, the furnitures, fixtures, and equipment. And they produced for the club a schedule that shows year by year what we can expect to spend to maintain what we have today. Now, of course, they're not fortune tellers, and they can't tell you that 3 years from now, the third air conditioner on the roof will go out. But they can give you an idea of how long it might last, and they can give you an idea of what it might last. We have that study, and the study's been updated in the past few months. We have that in-house, and so we know with this building, or with Plan 1, the good or the better, what we can expect, what we have in this building over the next period of time. The other thing we would do, once we get input from all of you and others who have been to these sessions, we'll have a more refined idea of what each plan could look like based upon the feedback we get from you. And at that point, we'll again meet with Peacock and Lewis, the architects. We will bring in a general contractor who will look at the plans, do some what's called value engineering. What things can they change that give you the same functionality but reduce the cost? We'll meet with a food service vendor and get a professional view of what the kitchen equipment will look like, how much it will cost. Once we have that information, we now have an idea of the cost of each option. We don't have that now. And the reason we don't have that now is we don't have your input and we haven't gone through this. Now, how would we pay for this? You know, the quick, easy interpretation of how we would pay for that is take the total cost of option 1, 2, and 3 and divide that cost by 450, the number of members in the club. And that determines what it's going to cost each of us. But it's more complicated than that. One, we have capital reserves. Right now, today, we have $2.2 million in cash in interest-bearing certificates that will continue to grow. That amount will grow. And it grows by future initiation fees. So all the money that we have in capital reserves today was paid by people who have joined the club recently. And the initiation fee 10 years ago was $30,000. It's now $80,000. And so people that are joining after today will pay the $80,000. And those new members will obviously contribute to the capital reserves, but they will in effect pay more for the project than we do. The other thing we have is long-term financing. We don't have it. We've talked with one bank, we'll be talking to future banks, And going back to the analogy with the car, if you can spread that cost, that initial cost, over a longer period of time, you reduce the amount you have to pay every year. And with our membership, you spread it over the new members who come into the club as well as the existing members. Once you have the answer to these things, then you get down to what member assessments would be if there are member assessments. So there are a lot of variables here. What if we had capital reserves higher than the 2.2 million we have today? And we will have, because more people will be joining. The project won't begin for some period of time, and Alan will touch on that. But what happens if the projected number of members, which is determined by attrition, potential number of new members changes year by year? And what happens if the initiation fee goes from 80,000 to 85,000 in 2 years, 90,000 2 years after that? And what happens if the long-term financing could be obtained over a 10-year term, or over a 5-year term, or a 15-year term? All of those factors affect that number. And to do that manually, to try to sit down and say, okay, instead of 20 new members in the next year, we expect there'll be 25. How does that affect the market? To do that manually would be unbelievably time consuming. So we have purchased from a consulting firm a computer modeling system. And we have a member, a young member named Patrick Donovan, who's a computer expert compared to the rest of us. And when we have a meeting and we're talking about these things, he can enter those variables and change them, and immediately on the screen it shows the effect of the project. And at this point, of course, we're just guessing at numbers, but we're doing the exercise. So over the summer, there'll be a lot more work done on trying to refine the designs, cost them, come up with alternatives for financing. And we'll come back in the fall to be in a better position to discuss. That's where we are from the financing. With that, turn it over to you.
Larry's the best. So just talk about timing, following what Larry said. We'll work and understand cost for the concepts over the summer. We'll get your feedback, both from the survey or from any other feedback over the course of the summer. Get that to us. We'll refine the concepts. As I said, they're very much an iterative process to refine them. Next November, we'll have a State of the Club presentation. We had one last November. We'll do another one this coming November. And by that time, the board should have a point of view on which concept, and also the financing and how we might pay for it. And so we'll present that to the membership. And then we will get more feedback, which I'm sure there'll be some. And then our objective is in January, February of next year to have a proposal that we can put in front of the membership for a vote. And by this time next year, I've had a vote, and so we have a path forward. So that'll be April, May of 25. That would start the timetable that Brian talked about. So it'd be 1 year from then, where they would do drawings and permits and that kind of thing. And that would get us to May of 26. And so the earliest we could start anything will be May of 26. Doesn't say we have to start in May of 26, but that's the earliest we could start in May of 26, 2 years from now. Good news is that we keep building capital, so that capital reserve number will keep going up. You'll start with a bigger pot to begin with. That'll take more pressure off the financing and the other ways to pay for it. We'll go from there. So that's kind of the timeline. We'd like to be in a position to have a decision about a year from now.